gentlemen of the Fourth Estate, fellow Liberians. Let me begin this press conference by condemning in the strongest possible terms the recent reported attack on the headquarters of the National Election Commission. We call on Liberians to address our differences through peaceful dialogue within the confines of the law. Our country has suffered so long and we cannot afford another round of violence. We call on the government of Liberia to ensure security across the country and to bring to justice the perpetrators of said attack. 3 months and 9 days ago, Liberia conducted a special senatorial election along with a constitutional referendum on 8 December 2020. According to the 1986 Constitution of Liberia, the special senatorial election should have been conducted on the second Tuesday of October 2020. However, the conduct of the election was delayed, as has been the case with every election since the ascendancy of the current government of Liberia headed by President George M. Weah. In an effort to prevent a constitutional crisis, the legislature passed a joint resolution that set a new date for the conduct of the election on 8 December 2020. It is alarming to note that the last process associated with the conduct of the December 8th election, which is the certification of declared winners, is yet to be finalized. It is this unprecedented situation that has made this press conference an imperative. Fellow Liberians, as we are aware, 15 senatorial positions constituting 50% of the membership of the upper house of the Liberian legislature were contested, having been declared vacant by NEC, consistent with Article 46 of the Liberian Constitution. Also, 8 propositions were approved for amendment by the legislature. Key among those propositions were reduction of the presidential term of office from 6 to 5 years, the inclusion of a dual citizenship clause in the Liberian Constitution, the reduction of the senatorial term of office from 9 to 7 years, among others. It is important to emphasize that the conduct of both the special senatorial election and the constitutional referendum was associated with serious challenges. As individuals who formerly serve as senior electoral managers of Liberia, we consider it a patriotic duty to comment in this public manner on the evolving electoral situation in Liberia. Our goal is to highlight some of the challenges and advance recommendations in order to prevent an interruption of our democratic order as we embark to 2023 electoral process. The conduct of the December with limited civil education activities, non-transparent recruitment of polling staff, a mobile voter roll update exercise decided by the NEC without the acquiescence of political parties. Moreover, the procurement of indispensable voter roll update materials such as camera was done after the update exercise was completed. To navigate its way around said problem, the National Election Commission NEC committed an unprecedented act by hiring camera boys from the streets of Monrovia and other parts of the country with no regard to their partisan status. This act enabled the photographers to access crucial data such as the negatives of the photos, thus making the duplication of photos possible. Indeed, that act on the part of the NEC created a serious credibility question that surrounded the conduct of the senatorial election. to strengthen the credibility of our electoral process and thus solidify the peace that currently prevails across our country, our common patrimony, it is significant that the NEC avoid repetition of acts that have the potential to derail the peace and stability of the country. Another situation of serious concern is the tracking of voters during voter registration or update activities that was so pronounced during the last voter update exercise. This practice, from all indications, has a propensity to undermine the credibility of Liberia's electoral process. While it is true that the practice predates the incumbency of the current commissioners of the NEC, it is significant to note that the practice was so pronounced during the last voter roll update exercise to the extent that it gave rise to violence in the counties of Bombing, Cape Mount, and Bapulu that led to injuries and destruction of property. As a country with a recent history of civil strife, it is sad and troubling development when there are acts of violence, especially related to electoral activities. Therefore, we call on the National Election Commission to muster the courage and work with civil society organizations, the religious community, political parties to collectively work with the national legislature to ensure the passage of an appropriate law that will curtail the practice of tracking voters. It is important that the NEC lead the way in an expedited manner to prevent a situation that could retard the progress of our country. As we have repeatedly emphasized on many occasions, election is the bridge between peace and chaos. In this regard, it is significant that the election management body takes every step to ensure that elections are delivered in a free, fair, and transparent manner to protect the peace and prosperity of the country. Because election is so cardinal for the maintenance of peace in any society, especially in post-conflict fragile society like Liberia, it is the obligation of electoral managers to play a responsible and patriotic role for the survival and progress of the state. While we wish the current managers of our electoral process success, we are, however, under obligation to express our disappointment and surprise for the unprecedented delay that is associated with the conclusion of the 2020 senatorial elections. The case in point is the situation involving Lofa County Senator-elect Brian J. Samoka and the failure of the NEC to certificate him more than 2 months after his victory. It is a disturbing development that the election management body that is supposed to be independent seems to be acting otherwise. This is tantamount to a dereliction of the Commission's responsibility. There is absolutely no justifiable reason why the NEC has not certificated with Samokai after his convincing victory in December. The indecisiveness of the NEC to certificate Samokai like others in his category gives the impression that the NEC is allowing undue outside influence in its work. The Commission should at all times stay above any political fray and maintain its independence. Under our electoral jurisdiction, the climax of the electoral process is certification. As such, the NEC must ensure that winners of elections are expeditiously certificated if public confidence in the credibility of the Commission is to be sustained. Another case of concern is the situation in Nimba County involving Mrs. Ide Gongo Ware and Honorable Jeremiah Kuhn in relation to the December 8th senatorial election. According to the NEC ruling in the case, evidence produced and eyewitnesses' account clearly authenticate the occurrence of fraud and massive irregularities that clearly impacted the result of the Nimba election. For example, In Ganta, there is evidence that ballot boxes arrived late. That was prompting election supervisor to suggest that ballots be cast in cartons to substitute for ballot boxes. Also, there is evidence that NEC magistrate James Flomoyan of Lower Nimba and Reverend Pay of Upper Nimba did open at 2 a.m. in Sanokole, Nimba County, ballot boxes for the professed purpose of looking for referendum ballots. As Nigeria gradually embarked on the road to election 2023, the acts by the electoral workers are alarming, disturbing, and troubling. They have the potential to revise the minimum gains that we have collectively achieved as a people. At the close of every election, ballot papers are concealed and protected in ballot boxes with numbers sealed for a period of a year or more. The boxes are authorized open. The ballots burned by the NEC Board of Commissioners once it has become abundantly clear that there is no longer any contest associated with the election. When this procedure is violated, the result of the entire election becomes questionable. For the NEC Board of Commissioners, with the exception of Commissioners Waka A. Dukle and Josephine Cole Gay, in the face of this mounting evidence of fraud, to endorse the result of the election in Nimba in favor of Honorable Kuhn is worrisome and a bad omen for future elections. CDM attention has also been drawn to the situation in Bapolo County, where violence was perpetrated against Mrs. Boto Kane, allegedly by supporters of the ruling party in an effort to intimidate her along with her supporters. Notwithstanding these challenges, it is clear that Mrs. Kane is in a comfortable position to be declared and certified as winner of the December 8th Bapolo Special Senatorial Election. For the NEC to allow itself to be drawn into frivolous litigation that has the propensity to bring its reputation in question is indeed a sad commentary. CDM is seizing this opportunity to call on the NEC to resolve in a timely manner all outstanding cases, including those of Riverside and Cape Mount, in an effort to enhance the credibility of the Commission. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, during the 2014 Special Senatorial Election, the Supreme Court of Liberia, over petition by any aggrieved party or parties, removed the remedial provision, Chapter 6, Section 2.1 and 2 of the 1986 election law. That provision provided for the sitting of a candidate declared victorious by the National Election Commission NEC, whose victory is contested by another candidate or party. In its place, the Supreme Court in 2014 ruled that once a complaint is filed against the election of a candidate, even to the extent that said complaint lacks merit, the candidate concerned cannot be certificated until the complaint is adjudicated. That ruling by the Supreme Court is the basis for the current multiplicity of complaints filed to the Election Commission. Another issue of grave concern is the need for biometric enrollment to constitute the method of voter registration. The current optical mark recognition, OMR, system has become obsolete. As such, there is a need to graduate to a biometric system that will make impossible double and multiple registration that has become prevalent with the OMR system. The outdated manual system that is non-digital, along with inefficient NEC data clerk, were responsible for the voter registration fiasco that contaminated the 2017 voter registration rule. Before the ECOWAS technical team intervention in 2020 that salvaged the 2017 voter registration rule, the December 8th senatorial election will have ended in chaos. Moreover, there is a need for the NEC to be truly independent. One of the factors that hampers the work of the NEC is the lack of financial autonomy of that institution. The NEC is treated in terms of funding by the government of Liberia like any other line ministry or agency. Unlike other electoral jurisdictions such as Ghana, the NEC is funded by the GOL on a piecemeal basis. This system of funding enables political actors at the hierarchy of government to delay or reduce funding to the Commission once the result of an election does not favor the government. Lastly, there is a need to strengthen the decision-making process of the NEC Board of Commissioners. The 7-member structure of the NEC has made decision-making cumbersome. Additionally, there is a need to review the power of the presidency as it relates to its unilateral nature regarding the nomination and appointment of commissioners of the National Elections Commission. Of utmost importance is the adjudication of electoral disputes by the NEC. The current system places the NEC in the position of being the jury and the judge. There's a need for a separate entity to handle electoral disputes instead of the NEC being left with all the burden to ensure speedy and credible resolution of electoral cases. In view of the foregoing, the Center for Development and Election Management, CDEM, wishes to make the following recommendation. Number one, that in order to prevent a constitutional crisis in 2023, Chapter 6, Section 2, 1 and 2, being a remedial provision of the 1986 election law relating to the returns or results of election, be restored by the National Legislature prior to 2023. 2, to prevent a repetition of the challenges associated with the voter registration process of 2017, especially the omission of names and multiple registration, the biometric registration system be used to replace the current OMR system that has become obsolete. We want to emphasize that said biometric system be exclusively used by the NEC and not in conjunction with any executive agencies of the government of Liberia. 3, that the independence of the National Election Commission be solidified by the GOL granting its financial autonomy status in the form of making available to the Commission on a semi-annual basis budgetary allocation to ensure that the Commission focuses on the execution of its duties rather than daily trips to the Finance Ministry in search of funding. To ensure credible and speedy resolution of electoral disputes, an electoral tribunal be established to adjudicate electoral cases. 5, to ensure efficiency and effective decision-making at the level of the NEC Board of Commissioners, the membership of the Commission be reduced from 7 to 5 as was the case before 1997. 6, that the unilateral power of the President in relation to the nomination and appointment of commissioners of the NEC be reviewed with the objective of inserting a vetting mechanism that will ensure that the collective interest of all is protected. About CDEM. To conclude, the Center for Development and Election Management, CDEM, is a national civil society organization established in May 2019 by Liberians dedicated to the peace and development of Liberia. Initially known as the Edward Wilmer Blyden Center for Research and Development, CDEM is a legal organization consistent with the laws of Liberia. The center is dedicated to finding solutions to the challenges confronting the Liberian society in the area of election and other sectors of national development. Towards this end, CDEM shall endeavor at all times to play a constructive role that will further enhance and solidify our electoral process and strengthen the peace that currently prevails across our beloved country. I thank you. bring us to the end of this press conference, and we'll entertain questions. Well, if you pose your question, before posing question, identify yourself, institution you represent.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
My name is Henry Kamu, and I work with Front Page.
Front Page.
Yeah, and I have two concerns. One is, I'll ask you this, what would you, as a former chairman, what would you have done differently if you were in the current position the current chair is in? Who conducted it in the conduct of the 2020 December 2020 senatorial elections? And then the second one is, we've called for the review of that unilateral power, that power given to the president to select the chairman. As a chairman, when you serve that position, is this call being informed by something that you observe as chairman that you want a halt be placed to? Did you observe that because as the president with that power, he or she has some influence on the chair because he has that power to appoint the chair?
Okay, let me start with the from bottom. I don't know how with this sort of question, but let me start from the bottom. Well, in the first place, we all are different individuals. I mean, we all don't behave the same way. We don't have the same traits. So when I was chairman of NEC, he was with me, other commissioners were there, journalists, people who were around that time are here can attest to the fact. I was, in the first place, I was seconded by civil society organization or running a local NGO called Liberal Democracy Resource Center based on Broad Street, where we have material helping students and teachers alike. I was there based on my role that in 2004, civil society seconded me, so it was same with, some of my colleagues, Francis Johnson, Morris Allison, and so forth, Elizabeth Nelson. So at no point did I, as chairman, ever, in fact, thought of, taking dictation from president. In fact, the president, our relation with the president was on the official basis. Nobody, because nothing had around. So I never had that in contact with Madam President. I couldn't even have entertained it. So it never occurred during my administration for the time I served the commission. So that is clear. But all chairpersons will not be the same, so I mean we have to make sure to draw that line. So on the question of the first question you raised,
what would you have done differently?
Well, you need to look at what I did when I was there. I conducted 9 by-elections. 9. I conducted my leadership. We conducted a referendum, 2011, from referendum to election. We conducted voter registration void of problem. People didn't say they were not finding their name. People are here. Those who were around, they can attest to that. So we never had such problem. It is to my surprise, and I don't see why the NEC is the largest institution that certificate winner. I mean, no other way around it. So you got to make sure that if John Brown won the election, and election is conducted, I observed the election, December election. Where I was impressed with the way the results are given. So it becomes difficult for you to, you think you can play a game with the result, as they came. And that's the kind of system we put in place. That's why we want it, to even be enhanced. We conducted election here, people were in the US, seeing it on the internet, and thanking us. We had a data center open to politicians. I took political leaders, including Mr. Weir, when he was head of political leader of CDC, because that was the pride. The data center should not be a secret society. I told people, our politicians, they're using number of other people. Yeah. So I hope I've people on that. So that my records are there to to see what we did, and so such situation never occurred. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
My name is Corey Stanga, and I come from Truth FM.
Okay.
Yes, so you raised the issue about Benny Samuka case and the Election Commission and the Supreme Court. You said that it's a troubling sign for Nigeria. Are you sensing some political undertone in the entire process over it?
Well, I want to impute motive, but the fact of the matter is, one thing I know, this man deserves to be certificated. And if the NEC needs to explain why, it has not certificated this, this gentleman, like it's in the case of others that I made reference to. Because you all follow, you are journalists, you have followed development. I don't want to dwell what Supreme Court did, what did it do. The fact that Supreme Court upheld the ruling of the Election Commission, and that ruling, what was that ruling? That Brahmin Samka should be certificated. The first, the hearing officer at the commission looked into the case. That's the procedure. From there to the board of commissioners. So the hearing officer said there was no magnitude in the case, the man should be certificated. Send their recommendation to the board of commissioners. The board of commissioners concurred with the hearing officer. It was some people who went to the Supreme Court, and we saw what the Supreme Court did. So the issue to me, there's no ambiguity here.
Yeah. Weedor from Heritage newspaper. The National Elections Commission will on Friday be recounting the entire Rivers County. What do you make of this decision from the commission as they recommended by the Supreme Court of Liberia?
Well, again, I think I follow the Rivers just like in the other area. If the Supreme Court take a decision that there should be a recount, we can't question it, because that's the final decision-making process, in the country. They are at the peak there, so when they take a decision, but I think in my view, it's because to go and rerun, a recount. Initially, there were few centers that were reported that they had problems. The few centers, from our understanding, were counted, and of course there was some reduction in the number of the winner, of the person who was in the lead. Then they talk about recount of the rest of the players. I think 104 districts, centers, So I don't know, but with the account giving of some of the pool workers, in my best judgment, I thought because they all feel miserable, including parties that contested the election or independent candidates, because if you are sitting there, you have a representative, and then valid ballots, according to you, are being considered invalid, because this is something that everybody is a ballot, everybody look at it and have an agreement or disagreement on whether it's invalid or not. But again, I don't know, it brings the question how efficient even the pool workers themselves were in that county. But they said there's a recount, we have passed on to that. We look forward to the recount.
And let me just address on that question with regard to what address the Director General. The issue there is that in electoral management, international electoral management, it is very strange that an entire electoral area will be declared recounted. Very, very strange. This is why if you take an electoral dispute case or you challenge the result of an election, you have to be specific. Most lawyers that defend the person who is declared victorious that you are contesting, whose victory you are contesting, most lawyers will always say, don't engage in fishing expedition. You have to tell us exactly where the problems are. You cannot generalize. So to come in and say the entire series should be recounted, I think it would have been better for the commission to declare every wrong of the entire place. So that is very strange. And for the Supreme Court to go that route, as we are saying, the Supreme Court gave the order for that, is very disturbing and strange. And these are the things that we think should be discouraged as we move to 2023 to avoid problem.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
My name is Trojan from Fiber.
Okay.
I got a couple of issues.
Yeah.
According to you, you talk about the delay by the Elections Commission to the certificate running some card. But you also spoke about a law or a portion of the law, election law that was changed in 2014, which of course have given rise now to numerous complaints as we've seen. Don't you think that until that law, which you won't repeal, don't you think that it is that law that is giving rise to the action of the NEC by delaying the certification of running sound cards? Secondly, my second question, what is the rationale for you wanting the number of commissioners reduced from 7 to 5? How does that play in the decision making which you talk about of the commissioners or the elections commissioners? And then finally, you talk about the appointing power of the president. So if you were recommending not the president to, but the president not to appoint solely the commissioner of the Elections Commission, who do you want to be involved with the appointment of commissioners at the Elections Commission?
Thank you all so much. You talk about the issue of the appointing powers by the president. We are now calling for the president to be excluded for the appointment of the commissioners.
No, you said.
We are arguing for a vetting mechanism by civil society organizations, the National Bar Association, and so forth, so that those who are to be sent forward for to the president for nomination, it will be vetted by the institution in terms of their credibility, how credible these individuals are, in terms of their competence, in terms of their commitment, their demonstrated commitment to the positive movement of the country. Those criteria could be set, and based on that, those who are selected could be sent to the vetting agencies, and those who graduate, who succeed from that vetting process could be sent forward for the president to select from. That is what is doing to relations like Ghana, that's what is doing to relations like South Africa, and I think it's working well. That. Then on the issue of the 7-member commission, the commission, the original election law of 1986, have 5 members. Decision making based on my experience, I remained there for 16 years. It is very cumbersome to reach a decision. Election is a time-bound issue. You talk about results. To reach decision within among 7 persons is very cumbersome. There's delay associated with it. There's a whole lot of bureaucratic interworking. We think the issue of 5 commissioners, as was initially the case, will expedite the issue to make sure that we don't have a crisis at the time, 15 days period, 30-day period in which election cases should be finalized and results finalized and everything, so that we'll be within that time bound to avoid problem. Yeah.
And you talk about the delay because of the remedial provision, that would be the delay in certificating. I don't think that's necessarily the case. The NEC has not been firm in terms of, because there was a process in place to certificate running Samoka before I think NPC or so again went to the justice in chamber. All of these things have, if our chairman, because as I said, we never experienced what we have done otherwise. We never experienced such thing, because if you have such a case, you are daily doubting, you can't decide, your responsibility is clear, what you're supposed to do. If you come to that, you can't do it, then of course people can question you. But as I said, we conducted 9 by-elections without any problem. You know, so if it didn't mean that people couldn't go to court, and of some of those elections that we conducted, some good friends of mine lost election, you know, under my watch. But that's how democracy works. You know, you have to have a system that people will have confidence in. Because that's, if we have election, if you put yourself in the shoes of one of those people, you're convinced the people voted you, and yet you can't be seated. You know, if the NEC had done its part, you know, you take a decision, look, these people, as far as our own record are here, they are clear, we're going to certificate them. You go ahead and do it.
And to just finalize on that, I was on the board when in 2014 when the Supreme Court took onto itself and struck down the remedial provision. I was on the board. Notwithstanding, the Cocoa Commission, of which I was a part of, did not entertain this amount of delay, even though the law had been struck down. Now, what is the problem with the law? The striking down of this particular remedial provision. You got cases that have no merit coming to the commission to delay the commission time. When the remedial provision was in place, I mean, nobody would say Peter Paul should not carry a case to court. But while your case is in court, Mr. John Brown will be certificated and seated, and you pursue your complaint. At the end of the day, if you are declared the winner, who the challenger of the result, the man who is seated will be withdrawn and you will be seated and appropriately reimbursed. As we're doing in the case of our Bill 12 and so forth. And so forth. So that was the benefit of the remedial provision. The problem the removal of the remedial provision that's created is that cases that have no merit are all carried and parked on the docket of the commission. Now, if you have a decisive commission, you can decide those cases very quickly. What we are saying in this particular instance relating to the current board, they are indecisive. So all those complaints that have no merit, example of the situation in Riverside, that have been entertained, prolonged, and this is why after 3 months, the process of the 2020 election is yet to be finalized.
Yes, my sister.
My name is Sina S. I work for Jade as a public statement.
Okay.
Mr. Fukoya, as a former boss.
Flomoyan.
Sorry. As a former boss, what did you do to curtail tracking of voters? And what recommendation can you give as we get to what 2020?
Let me come in. The chairman started it during his time. We drafted legislation. There were electoral reform bill that was sent through. One of those things had to do with the issue of the boundary harmonization. And there was this issue about the electoral districts. We even at that particular time were of the view that certain counties did not reach certain numbers of the threshold to have certain amount of districts. During that particular period, there were legislations that were prepared for enactment by the legislature, but the legislature canceled those ones. In the succeeding administration of Jerome Kokoya, there was a legislation prepared to the effect that trucking of voters be declared a crime and should be prohibited. That particular legislation was also sent, a recommendation was sent to the legislature to be enacted. But since they are the people who are practicing this particular and they have to pass the law, they decided not to pass the law. And this is why we are calling on civil society group, the religious community, political parties to join together for the commission to take the lead in order to ensure that there's a law passed this time by the legislature to prevent this ugly situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Jonathan Whisper from MBS. I have two concerns. One have to do with the timing. Since the December 8, 2020, as an institution, 3 months now, we are just coming up with statement against the electoral process. People are in court, certification still remains. My last question has to do with the statement you said, NEC, the current, are acting otherwise. Otherwise in terms of what?
Well, you talk about timing. I don't think the statute of limitation as to when you should raise an issue of this magnitude. The issue now over, yet cases are still in court. So, I mean, there's nothing to say that, you know, we needed to have started talking 2 months ago or so forth. You know, our position, we have position statement before on the electoral process as an institution. So it's I think what is being offered and the recommendation to me that what should matter more than you know, the timing of it. The second part of the question.
Yeah, you said you are trouble because NEC is acting otherwise.
But not doing what is prudent, what is appropriate. If you're not doing what is appropriate, I mean, how else can one tell me? You're supposed to, you are not being decisive. We made that very clear in determining who won the election or should be certificated. You know, so you give the impression as if, you know, you are under undue influence. I think that's what we put in.
Yeah, there was a Supreme Court ruling mandating the commission to certificate. They called a meeting at the Elections Commission and read the Supreme Court mandate and then failed to certificate. I mean, why should you be listening to an executive agency? Is the Ministry of Justice above the Supreme Court? Come on, this is it. When the Electoral Commission behaves like that, they become questionable. You create chaos. The Supreme Court passed, I mean, there were 2 issues here. One dealing with, nobody is here supporting if somebody took money that don't belong to them and they have to pay for it, yeah, they should pay. That's another issue here. But there's also a ruling that said that has nothing to do with the election that took place. Now, based on that, the Supreme Court ruled that this man, the winner of the election in the County should be certificated. The Supreme Court called him, the Election Commission called him and met, and then went on to read the mandate of the Supreme Court. I thought if you read the mandate of the Supreme Court, if I were there, that's not necessary. The mandate came to me. I don't have to read it. So I will proceed to do what the mandate said. And if you challenge me, I will show you the relying. That I did the certification based on what was mandated to me. But if you chose to inform the public that you have received a mandate, that's good. But then the next step after the reading of the mandate was to say, look, come forward and be certificated. But to read the mandate and then postpone certification, because some letter from the Ministry of Justice has come back, it means the Justice Ministry now supersedes the authority of the Supreme Court as a country of law that is troubling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yeah.